Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I hope you're all keeping very well and safe out there, and I hope you're all creating beautiful artwork. I do hope you're finding these tutorials helpful for you. Any little things at all that you will learn is fantastic, and I've done my job. This week I'm going to paint a lovely traditional Irish landscape. Beautiful greens, a little bit of sea, some mountains, some rocks, some grass, a nice typical Irish landscape, and a nice landscape in general. So this is from down around the west of Ireland, the Dingle Peninsula, I think it's called, or the Ring of Kerry, one or two. But yeah, I'm going to do this on a nice square canvas. I've primed this just once with a water-based regular undercoat. I just thinned it out with some water, gave it one quick coat of primer, let it dry, and a quick rub with fine sandpaper just to smoothen it off. And it's lovely and smooth, really lovely and smooth. It feels like a really expensive canvas. It's lovely. So that's my plan today, a nice Irish landscape, greens, blues, all that kind of stuff. So let's have a bit of fun with this. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so. You're missing lots and lots of fantastic tutorials, so do subscribe. Hit the notification button as well. That will get you the most up-to-date tutorials as they appear. I try to get one a week, and I try to get one a week, one every fortnight for Patreon. So again, thank you so much, my patrons. If you're interested in Patreon, pop over to Patreon and take a look. There's a lot of extra tutorials over there, some beautiful scenes that you can paint. So pop over and take a look, see what you think. And thank you as well. Okay, let's have a bit of fun with this. Grab your canvases, grab your paints, and let's go and paint a nice little scene. Right, my friends, let's have a bit of fun with this. Here's my palette. These are my colours: titanium white, naples yellow, phaylo blue, magenta, burnt sienna, cadmium red, yellow pale, cadmium red, burnt umber, and lamp black. There's the reference photograph. Isn't that just beautiful? Beautiful colours, lots of detail. We'll have a bit of fun with this one. I hope you enjoy it, okay? I have a square canvas here, 400 by 400. I primed it once, as I said. I have a bit of masking tape going across. So I won't worry about the drawing until I finish the sky first. Yes? Let's have a bit of fun, come on. Let's mix up some nice blue for that sky. So, large brush, dampen your brush, go right into some titanium white and some phthalo blue. Let's get a nice rich blue sky on this. So I'm just adding touches of thinners now, just to thin this out. I want it nice and creamy. Okay, nice and creamy. Let's take some more phthalo blue. And I'm going to add into this a touch of magenta as well. Just to warm this nice, just to make it nice, a nice rich blue, a warm kind of a blue. Now I'm mixing this in well, I don't want it too wet. You see the way my thinners is in the edge of the brush, you see? I'm just mixing it all in so it's not too wet. I want to be able to cover this canvas nicely, so a nice rich blue. Okay, let's have a look. Yes, I'll go with that. Bring that right across. This is a very thin mix now, all right? Lots of thinners in this, because we can thicken it up as we go as well. Let's put a nice rich blue across there. All the way down, well, not all the way down, around halfway, we'll say, and then I start adding white. So I'll just clean my brush quickly, grab some white, pop some white in there on its own. Look, just white paint, and it's going to mix with the blue and thin itself out as you go, you see. So you already have thinners on the brush, so it's going to thin out as it goes. I generally have a rule of thumb that a sky will always get paler as it comes to the horizon, in general. So a blue sky will always get lighter towards the horizon. That's pretty much what I would say to you. Let's soften all of this in now and get a nice graduation of blue from light to dark, or dark to light, whichever you prefer, from top down to bottom. Keep going until it's nice and soft and you have a nice gradual lightening like that. Okay? Now I'm going to darken it on top. I want a nice rich blue on top. So again, phthalo blue. Maybe just phthalo blue on its own, yes? Let's soften this across the top of that. When I have a layer on already, I generally don't use thinners after that. I just take some phthalo blue on its own, neat paint, and go right over that thinner colour because it's already wet. You don't need to thin this anymore. And that helps the colour then to stay, you see? There we go. Nice and deep up on top, a deep blue. Isn't that right? For a nice landscape. Okay, I think we're good with that. Dare I say, a little bit more. Phaylo blue and magenta. Perhaps just that little tiny bit more here and there, look. Now, let's pop some clouds into this. I think that's okay. Let's pop a few clouds in up here. And there's lots of different ways now that we can do clouds on this. I'm going to start with a brush. Let's try a dry brush, nice and dry. And let's just simply take some white on our brush, lots of thick white paint. And let's just have a bit of fun with this. Let's imagine, come on, look, let's just imagine there's a lot of stuff kind of coming up, flicking upwards, like, look, just like that. Let's just imagine there's a lot of stuff flicking along, going up at a slight angle, up right into the sky. Okay, now I'm taking my brush again, just take that blue off of the brush if you can, and let's pop a couple of clouds off in the distance as well. Okay, here and there, and perhaps a couple over here. I'm just having a bit of fun. Remember, fun, 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 fun. Just have some fun with your clouds. And pop a little, look, one or two like that. Because we're going to be softening all of these with the palette knife as well. And our blender brush, we're going to be doing a lot of work, softening and all that kind of thing. So look, just let's have some fun. Drag some white here and there. You see, just kind of random clouds flicking around up in that sky, like so. Now I'll stop at that. I'm going to take my soft blender brush and just soften all of these together, swooping up and down the sky, you see, following that direction. And then up here, we could just sort of dab as well, if you want, just with the edge of your brush. You see that? Just making some random effects of cloud up in the sky. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And don't try and get this absolutely perfect. Let's try a palette knife. Grab some white and we can just go like this, look. Just very, very loosely and very randomly. Have a bit of fun. It's all about just creating texture. That's all it is. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay, just like that. It's just try to be nice and fluid with all of this. Try not to spend too long on one particular kind of a cloud, trying to get it just perfect and all that kind of thing, because it will take you forever and you will get bogged down with details. Now I think I'll just leave the bit of texture in the sky. It's absolutely fine. So I'm going to remove my masking tape. Then we have these lovely hills in the distance, don't we? How's that? A nice clean crisp line. Isn't that lovely? I just love when that happens. I'm going to stick to the same brush that I have here, this lovely soft brush. These are soft brushes. I'm going to start doing the hills. Let's take some burnt umber, mix it into that blue. Tiny bit. You have a kind of a greeny blue, because brown and blue makes a kind of a muddy green. I'm just going to use that now and try and create just a very loose impression of these hills. Okay, just very, very, very loose. And the reason I'm using my big brush for this is because if you use a small brush, you tend to get lost in those little details. So by using a big brush like this, it just forces you to be very loose with your brush strokes, and that in turn means you're not focusing too much on little details. You see, I'm just kind of popping a few in, dragging them down. Does that make sense? So I find, especially when I'm doing something like this, I find just using a slightly larger brush makes all the difference. So you see just slightly darker shades here and there. And we have a couple of small little ones in just here. And I'm not trying to be perfect with all of this either. Very, very loose, that's all. That's what I would say to you. Very, very loose. And at the end of the day, this is really just an impression. Now I'm taking some Naples yellow into that. Not mixing it too much. And we have a couple of nice ones off in the distance up here, you see. Again, not trying to copy everything. Okay, I'm going to go slightly darker with some black, some phthalo blue, and I'm going to go nice and dark just here, okay? You can see there's a nice contrast there between that one and the lovely kind of bright sky in the background, so I'm just going to darken this a little bit here and there, just kind of dabbing along with my brush really, to create just little darknesses here and there, and perhaps a small one then just out at sea here, look. A little bit of a rock out in the sea. And then maybe just some dabs of burnt umber and black along the base. It's just really creating a little bit of interest, bit of texture, you know, call it whatever you like. It's just creating something of interest to draw the eye in. You see what I mean? It just brings the eye in, doesn't it? Now I'm going to go up with this one with that colour as well. Very loose, okay? Just very loose. Now I'm going to clean my brush just very quickly on some tissue and go into some cadmium yellow and mix some cadmium yellow into those colours. So we end up with this nice greeny colour, okay? And pop a little bit of that greeny colour through. And even some cadmium yellow on its own. You can see we have a nice green over here on this side then, but that little touch of green just to add a little bit more interest into the distance. Isn't that right? A little bit of interest, that's all. And we can soften it up here and there, allow it to disappear. Rather than having just sharp lines of colour. There, that's quite nice now, isn't it? I'm thinking, do I need to go a bit bigger with that hill compared to the photograph? Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's just leave it for now. I think that's probably okay. I could perhaps just darken it ever so slightly, just out around the edge like this, look. Perhaps just a little. What do you think? Perhaps that's fine. Okay, moving down. I'm now going to take a pencil and just very loosely put in a little bit of sketch, a very loose sketch of these kind of bits of land here, okay? So we have a nice kind of a, you see all these pieces coming down, and then we have a nice bit of a land coming down like this, and it comes right down like that, doesn't it? So these little bits here, comes around just very, very loosely again. That's fine, I think that's all we need. I'm thinking, should I just first go with the ocean? Yes? Let's just paint that in first, because that should be quite simple, really. It's just simply blue, isn't it? So let's just dampen our brushes. I'm going to dampen my big brush, take some phthalo blue, and a little white. And I start with that. And this is just a nice little base colour, I find. And I'm not being too concerned about going over my drawing and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about that. That will be absolutely fine. Nice rich blue look. Nice rich colour for landscape this time. I do tend to use a lot of subdued and subtle colours in my landscape painting, but I just found for this one, I think, a nice rich blue. Now, let's take a bit of black into that. I'm just going to kind of dull it down here and there with a little bit of darker colour. Look, a couple of flicks here and there. Then I'll wipe my brush again, go into some white, and we'll pop some of the lighter colour across up at the horizon, scraping it across just like so. Now I will try to get it nice and relatively straight. And how's that? Let me grab some white, and I'm going to pop in a little suggestion of some waves breaking, some rough waters out there, you know, that kind of thing. I think that would be nice. So let me grab a palette knife, a nice flat palette knife like this. Make sure it's nice and clean. Grab some white with the palette knife, and let's see now, can we create something with this. I know the land is around here, it has a lot of kind of rough waters around it as well, so if I just kind of scrape some of that around here, and around this one as well, we seem to have lots of rough kind of water in there coming off. These are so small now, they're so far away in the distance, you're hardly going to see any of these. So I will soften some of them in a minute. You know, just creating a little bit of life out there on the water. That's what I'm trying to do, really, create some life. And look, a little bit of a shimmer even. Drag some white across the canvas here and there, up high, up in the distance. And if anything else, it's giving it a little bit of texture as well. So I'll take my soft blender brush again, make sure it's relatively clean. I'm just going to soften some of those out. See, just a little bit here and there. And I'm then going to use that palette knife and do the same thing with some darker colour. So let me mix up some darker colour, some phaylo blue, touch of black, touch of magenta, and maybe a hint of white. Okay, and let's try this. Let's see if this has any effect. Just scrape left and right, left and right. And again, the only reason I'm doing this is just to try and create a little interest in the ocean. Nothing else, just a little bit of interest. A bit of phaylo blue perhaps. I'd rather not have it just a completely flat, bland colour. I do like to try and add a little something into it every now and then, as I was doing here, just something to catch your eye, just to add a little bit of extra something to the water, rather than just having a flat blue colour. Now, we'll stop at that and just move on for now. We can come back to it again. Let's go and start some of this land. We've some lovely land down coming in here, don't we? So I'm going to go back to this little flattish, nice soft flat brush, and green. Green, green, green. We have some warm greens and some cold greens. I'm going to start off with some warm greens, I think. Okay, just dampen the brush slightly. Take plenty of cadmium yellow and a touch of lamp black. Plenty of thinners now because I'm mixing a lot of this to cover this entire area. All right, I think cadmium yellow and lamp black make a lovely warm green. Do you think? I'm just going to start with this colour and I can build on this then as I need. Okay, look, touch of blue, why not? And let's just go over and create this little bit of land over here. Then it comes around, and I really just want a nice sort of a base colour to work on. Let's try some burnt umber with some black and some cadmium yellow. kind of sticking with the warm greens, but they're a little bit dark. You see, I want to kind of go with a little bit of a dark green as well, so I can lighten that in quite easily. And it cuts across and comes down, doesn't it? And soften this up into the distance. Give it a couple of dabs here and there. And I will later on then concentrate on, you know, little highlights in the fields for houses and that kind of thing. So that's all to come as well. So not to worry, not to worry. Let's go right into some cadmium yellow here now. Pop some cadmium yellow in here. And it's coming down. Lots of cadmium yellow, little touch of phaylo, and perhaps some burnt sienna. So I'm just messing around with my greens basically, just trying to have a bit of fun, really. This is all, again, it's just a base colour. It's just something to fill in the white canvas. That's all it is. So I'll bring that right down. And this all looks very sort of rough and loose now at the moment, but it's going to come together slowly. We will start adding shades to this and shapes and all that kind of thing. So remember, I do this in every painting. I kind of just put on a loose colour everywhere and then work on that. So, okay, let me take a look now. Let's just stop and gauge where we are. I think now what I'll do is go to a slightly smaller brush and start working on some of these up here. Okay, so I'm going to get some burnt umber and some black. And these now will kind of really bring out the shapes. So I'm just going to start by kind of filling in this part of the land up here, this cliff, and it comes right around and it goes off down like that, doesn't it? So fill it in like this, and remember, don't try to be too perfect with all of this, okay? And you see what I'm doing now, I'm kind of softening all of this into the green, because I don't want it all sort of just sticking out like a very dark line. I want to soften all of this in, and with my brush I'm creating little details, you see. You see, look, tiny details with the brush. Already we have a nice little bit of land going on there, don't we? And perhaps a little bit of black, just to go really dark down towards the bottom. And that really separates it from the water nicely, doesn't it? So it's amazing what you can do, even with just a little flat brush like this, you see. Creating these little different entrances and all that kind of thing. And just by even dabbing the brush sometimes, you're creating tiny little details, look. Very small, tiny details. One or two around here, and then we have this one that comes out here into the ocean again, look. And I'm not following the reference photograph exactly. I'm pretty much kind of going on my own with this. A little bit of Naples yellow, a little bit of sienna. You see, pop some lights in there. Come back here, then it disappears. And all the while I'm doing this now, I'm thinking simple. I'm thinking simplicity. Remember, keep it simple. Everything nice and simple. And even sit right back from the canvas and look at what you're doing. And we have lots of little rubble and all that kind of stuff then as well, don't we? Okay, just like this, look. Scrape the brush around. Have a bit of fun. That's what I would say. Don't be afraid to just enjoy what you're doing. A little bit of fun as well along the way. Now, I'm going to just come up here. I'm going to soften some of this into the water, look. You see how that just kind of softens everything, and it almost kind of pushes everything off into the distance a little bit, doesn't it? Okay? And it just kind of, it almost sits it down in the water, just allows it to sink into the water and disappear. So already we have quite a bit kind of in here, don't we? Now we have a lovely little sandy area up there as well. I don't know if you can see it on the photograph, but in here, I know because I've been here before, there's a little sandy beach in here as well. So I'm just going to pop a little hint of a sandy beach in, off in the distance. Again, simple, nice and simple. Okay, now a little bit of dark green, just go around this little sandy beach, just to set that off a little bit, that's all. Okay. And now with this same brush, I'm going to start highlighting some of the greens up there. I'm going to start with some darker greens. I'm going to go with some lamp black and lots of cadmium yellow. Now the secret to this is to make a nice thick paint. So I put on a very thin layer on this. My next step now is to start putting on thicker paint. So I'm just taking lots and lots of paint and I'm going nice and thick. And I just want to darken some of this here and there, look. And the trick with this really is sort of a hit and miss. So I'm almost creating the impression of different fields, look, just with the edge of my brush. Little lines coming down here and there, and it's a very hit and miss sort of affair, isn't it? So you're not seeing exact fields, but I'm creating the impression that there is different colours going on out in the distance. And you can already see that. You see that now just by a couple of little flicks with the brush. And I'm going to show you something else as well. I'm just going to clean that brush quickly. If I go into some white, okay, let's put some little tiny cottages off up here in the distance. Let's just dab a couple of little bits here and there. Now, this is not painting little details, but you can see already I'm giving the impression, and that's the word, the impression that there is something up there off in the distance, little buildings and all that kind of stuff going on, lots of different bits of life. And that's the impression I'm trying to get across. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is get some lighter colour. So some of that cadmium yellow, Naples yellow, and a touch of blue, look. Now I'm going to just go with some lighter shades to go here and there as well, in between some of them, look. And that is again adding some distance up there and giving you the impression of light and dark grasses and fields and all that kind of stuff, different shades of fields. Just a little bit. Moving down, we go down now to this section here, and I'm going to start lightening the colour as it comes down. So I'm taking some cadmium yellow and burnt sienna, a little bit of turpentine, just a touch, and maybe some cadmium yellow or some Naples yellow as well. A nice bright colour. And again, just start lightening here. You see, just lighten it up slightly, just to add that something different. Let's try a little touch of sienna in there as well. Now you can see I'm being really subtle with the changes in colour in all of this. I'm not being too drastic too soon. I will just add a little dark here as well, look, just to simulate a separate field. So the land is changing here, it's going from one section to another section. Then I'll take some cadmium yellow with Naples yellow, and I'll cut in front of this with some of that colour, you see. And it just starts to separate all of these. Now, who wants to do a little bit of detail? I think I would like to do some detail on some of these little cliffs. I'm going to start off with some Naples yellow first, and just start getting some highlights in here of those lighter rocks just coming down here and there. A little bit here. And a couple of dabs here and there as well, rather than just having it, because you can see little highlights here and there in the painting, or in the photograph rather. So I can see little highlights here and there as well. And again, look, just a bit of interest. That's all it is. A little bit of black. And we'll pop a little bit of black in here and there as well, look. I'll be honest, I'm hardly looking at the photograph at this stage. I'm really just grabbing my black and I'm just putting in some impressions of detail, that's all. So I'm not being really that fussy about copying the photograph exactly. If you want to copy the photograph, please, by all means, do so. If you want to copy it exactly as it is, I just think it's better to create a simple impression of something rather than trying to paint every single piece. Now I'm just going to go over some blue and add a hint of light blue on some of these, because the light blue will give a beautiful little highlight. Okay, now that's it. How was that? Not bad, I would say. I'm going to just bring this down and over like that. And again, just touching little details here and there. The next thing I'm going to do is grab a fan brush. I'm going to have some fun with the fan brush. So this is where all the texture comes into play now. Dampen the fan brush and just dry it first, okay? Let's go into some cadmium yellow, some naples yellow, and a touch of sienna. With that, just going to go along and just start creating some texture disappearing off into the distance. Just like this first, okay? And then when you come down, really go to town. You see how the fan brush, it just gives you that beautiful texture that you don't have to worry about going into lots and lots of detail. Let's take some sienna. I see quite a nice bit of sienna in there, and that will just help warm the painting as well. So then we're simply just alternating between colours. Let's try a bit of dark green, for instance, and put a bit of dark green in there as well. We do have a lot of dark green down here, don't we? Now I'll just grab some cadmium yellow from my palette. Now, hasn't this come a long way in such a short period of time? I think it has. I think it's amazing what you can do in such a short period of time if you just try to keep it simple, you know. Now, some white, cadmium yellow, and a touch of sienna again. I'm going to again lighten this area because I want it nice and light. I don't want this all too dark. And don't worry about all of these rocks. I'm going to be putting those rocks in last. So we'll come down now and we'll fill all of this in right all the way down. And the fan brush just gives you it's a very unique kind of effect, I find. It's very random and sometimes even very natural as well. Now I'm just going for a slightly darker green again, a little bit of burnt umber. You can see now this is quite wet. Dab, 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 dab. I'm kind of going over at an angle, you see? Coming down at an angle. And again, this is just the very early stages of the painting. I keep saying that because it's very early on. This is, you know, we're a long way away from being finished with this painting. So this is just part one. I'm just getting kind of the basic shapes and all of it filling in done in this part of the tutorial. And then in part two, we'll move on to more detail. So the rocks, more grasses, all that kind of thing will come in part two. But just for now, let's even try and get some nice grasses as well. Look. I'll have lots of highlights going over all of this as well, okay? Not to worry. A couple of little grasses coming up here and there. Already you can see it's starting to really fill in and look like a green area. Couple over here coming out. So we have a lot done, don't we? I think now the next thing I'm going to do is get some real dark ones. So some real dark greens. Let's go with some black, phthalo blue, and lots of cadmium yellow. I'll just grab some cadmium yellow there again, if you don't mind, and let's get lots of thick paint here now. Lots of thick colour. Look, a nice blacky green. And I'm just going to put in some of the shadows where the rocks are casting shadows there. I just want to pop those in now while I have this nice and wet. Okay, just going to pop it in. Flicking it upwards, look, that's all. Nice and simple. And then we have another one or two, maybe a bit more blue. Another one or two over here. Okay, so we now know the rocks are going to be here. Okay, that's where the rocks are going to be. So at least now we have these nice darks in, and pop one or two in just here and there, just to give it a little bit of interest. Now what I'm doing is I'm preparing my canvas for the real bright highlights later on. So I know I have my darks in and I can then get some nice bright highlights in at a later stage. So look, I put a little bit of a flick here for some shadows on that, perhaps one or two down here, just to mix it up a little bit. I don't want all bright green grasses and all that kind of stuff everywhere. Nice to have some shadowed grasses as well. I'll stop at that, go into some burnt sienna perhaps, and look, I'll pop a few little bits in with burnt sienna as well. Again, add a touch of colour. Clean my brush again, and I'll go with some brighter colours. Some cadmium yellow, naples yellow, burnt sienna. Now I didn't even use cadmium red yet actually. Try a bit of cadmium red. Let's get some nice brighter shades here and there. Just mix it up. Just don't forget, keep it nice and light and simple. And I wouldn't try and, get this perfect first time. I really wouldn't. I would just take our time, get some of these nice lights in. Let's go with some white and yellow as well, look. Let's get some nice bright ones in here. Now there will get a point where you can kind of overwork this slightly, and when it gets to that point you have to say, okay, have I enough done? Have I enough of this brushwork done? And that's when you have to decide to stop. Now I think I'm pretty much getting to that point. I am just going to, however, just take some dark, and again, I want to separate some of this. You see, just bring some of these down, and then pick up perhaps some of that yellow, pop some richer green in here and there. Just a little bit. Now I do also want to soften this into the cliff face. Look, I'm just softening some of that brown into the cliff. It just makes it all seem a bit softer, I think, and it just seems to kind of look better. So very gently, kind of just softening everything together there, just at the top. And I think then we will get our little pointy detail brushes, if I can find it, down here, and I'm going to then just add some highlights around some of these. See, just a couple of little suggestions of little waves breaking. Doesn't have to be detailed or anything like that, just a suggestion of water splashing here and there. And you know, we can go as much as we want with all of this. We can stop at any stage, completely up to us. But again, I will try to avoid overdoing this, because you can overdo this very, very quickly. All right. And that's pretty much, I think, part one finished. I'm just going to soften the sand area into the water slightly, so it's not so harsh. Okay, like that, see? All those little things help. So I'm going to call this part one finished, I think, for now. I'm just going to really add some bright highlights in between some of these. Where my rocks are going to be later. And that will really show off the rocks, and it will show off the shadows as well, most importantly. And you might find, even if you want to darken some of the shadows as well, you can do that also. Take a bit of dark colour and just maybe refine the shape of them slightly. You see, just refine the shape a little bit, just like that. So now that's our shadows done and all for the rocks. Just maybe go up a little bit here and there, just to make them very natural and random. I don't want to be just putting lots of lines. So I want this kind of to have a bit of a natural feeling to it as well. And we'll have lots of grasses and stuff going on then as well later on. So, my friends, we're going well. We are going very well, I must say. And we're finished part one. Done with part one. Part two will be those rocks and nice highlights and shadows on those rocks. So let me just soften some of these up in the distance here. Make it nice and soft. Push them into the distance. Part one finished, my friends. I will be right back with part two. Do not go anywhere. I will see you very, very shortly. Thank you and goodbye.